technically 2 years since that I have you waiting. You had me waiting for 7.
I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, and I know it hurts bad. How long?
However.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys about Put a Ring on It. We're talking about Hollywood and Ashley. We'll talk about Michael and Shay, and also Tamika and Vince in other videos. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure you like, you share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, well, you got the minerals. And look at the jersey, we got it on here. Mineral gang, you understand? Yeah? Minerals, okay? All right, listen, don't forget to grab your merchandise, baby. All right, let's talk about this particular episode. I want to talk about the car scene because I think it was emotive. I think it was powerful. I think there was a lot that was being said that can really help you build more healthy relationships going forward. So we're talking here about dealing with pain and how one should handle it as a partner when you've caused it. Okay, now the situation between Hollywood and Ashley, I think I've said this previously in the last video, is that the problem here with Ashley and Hollywood is that Hollywood has a similar problem to Shay. Though he acknowledges that he caused some pain and discomfort to Ashley, he's not aware that a part of his behavior in terms of saying, I accept what I have done, requires for you to shut up, keep your mouth stum, and listen.
Man, I'm listening, but you keep saying the same things.
All right.
You
But
keep
I'm
telling
saying the
me,
same thing
man.
because you don't comprehend
I'm
it.
tired of telling you. I've been ready.
Okay.
And
I
you keep-
understand you ready.
And I've been saying this for the past three or 4 weeks. So let me talk to somebody who's in a relationship. You have caused some turmoil, some pain, some storm, some hurt to your partner. Okay, if you decide that your pain that you're feeling now is more important than theirs that they're feeling at the time, you are not going to be able to win your partner over. Okay, if you feel that you know what you have to say is more important than what your partner's actually saying to you, you're gonna have a problem. If you don't deal with the fact that you don't listen well in the conversation, and the person says, I have to keep repeating myself.
Don't tell me that
Because
I get it.
what I'm saying is, if you understood it, you would never tell me to just get over it.
You're missing what your actual partner is saying. I want to say this. Someone said it to me, and I want to say it back to you. Someone said the comment of the year, and it's basically this: you can communicate, but the most important thing is comprehension. If you don't comprehend the answer, it don't matter how much you communicate, okay? Things are getting lost in translation, okay? A French person talking to you over and over and over and over again can say all the French words in the world, okay? Yeah, they can say everything they want to say underneath the sun, okay? But until you begin to comprehend and understand French, then it means nothing. In fact, the Bible tells us, like, if you have no love, but you're just talking, making noise, and you are a clanging cymbal, you have no distinction. The distinction of a Christian is the love that he's able to emanate, the love he's able to give out, the love he's able to produce through the fact that he has been shown love first through the Father and through the Holy Ghost. In fact, the Bible says, right? And so that's what makes Christians distinct, okay? And that's what makes our God distinct from any other God, all right? So when we're talking about relationships here, there is a sound that is distinct. There is a behavior that is distinct. There is a love, there is a care, there's a forgiveness that is distinct to your relationship, okay? That gives it its uniqueness, okay? So let's talk about what actually happened in the show, and then we'll kind of bring that back into how this is going to impact you and help in your relationship. Okay, so they got into the car. Hollywood kind of opens a conversation saying they both said some things that were not too positive, but he kind of gave, a communal action where he said, okay, both of us have done something wrong. So I'm not trying to draw you out. I don't want you to draw me out. So I'm going to say we both.
Like, I felt like I went there a little bit. I felt like you went there too, though.
You know what you be doing. It's like you say certain things and you like trigger me.
We both have, some things that we have to discuss, right? And said some things. And then she goes on top of that by saying, you say things to trigger me. Now, this actually said not only here, it's said later on also when they discuss with Dr. Nicole. And I think what's really important about her saying here that you say things to trigger me is that we have seen what she means by this. And I will say this again, in the conversations where Ashley begins to tell her side of the story, whenever she begins to explain how she feels, Hollywood goes into defense mode. Now, the reason why I believe Hollywood goes into defense mode is whatever happened in childhood, there was maybe a lot of critique, maybe there was a lot of looking down on him, judgment on him, or there could be the complete opposite, which is there was a lack of critique, a lack of conversation around his behaviors, and it always felt like his needs were above everybody else's. Because here, when he gets to a point when she begins to open up about her feelings, he does go into the mode of, I don't need this, I can do whatever I want to do, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I don't need to be here. And it's like, why does he go into that? Because of fear of losing here, and the fear of critique. You see, human beings find it very hard to receive critique. Yeah, even me, I'm very honest with you, it's not always I can receive critique. You have to consciously put yourself in a place where you say, don't take it personally, but listen to the truth in what the person is saying. Okay, how it's said is very much important, but at the same time, listen to the truth of what the person is saying and what's being said. And I think the reason why he then reason why he says things to trigger her, is like, for instance, saying, you know, I'm gonna leave, or you know, I can go with someone else, etc., etc. It's because he's frustrated because it's not going the way that he wants it to go, right? And so then his fear of it not going the way he wants to go, the lack of control in the scenario and the event, causes a reaction on his behavior to respond by saying, I can leave whenever I want. Trust me, that is a defense mechanism. I said it in some of my other relationships. I've said this before. I don't need you. If you go now, I'm good. If you leave now, I'm all right. I can't come and kill myself. No, that's true. I can't come and kill myself, and I won't die. You understand? But I won't be okay. That's the very truth of it. I say that because what I want to do is make sure I'm programming myself to say this could end at any moment. If it does, you don't want to feel this. You don't want to feel a wave of pain. You don't want to feel a wave of emotion. So buckle up now. Yeah, buckle up now. What that actually says to the other person when you're dating them is that you are not going to be here for the long haul. You're not going to sustain the tough times.
Conversation with Hollywood when he just goes immediately to the disposal of this relationship. It does not feel stable. It does not make me feel that he'll have my back.
You're basically saying that you're preparing yourself to leave at any moment, right? And that's what she said as well. And so she said, obviously, he doesn't understand the words that affect her in a certain way. And sometimes we don't realize some of the things that we say. I always say this, listen, be very careful. The Bible says life and death resides in that tongue. Okay, so you got to be very careful how you discuss these things. But because of Hollywood's fear and him saying those things, I think he actually confirms by saying, you know, it's frustrating that, you know, he wants to just leave, or says he can leave, because what that means is that she now doesn't feel stable. She doesn't feel like she got someone to fight with her or get her back. You know what's funny? It's interesting because I'll be very frank with you guys. When I was just in my recent relationship with the missus, we in a period of time, and I call it the storming phase of your relationship, where you are trying to jostle for power, you're trying to find out where you stand in a relationship and wagwan, etc., etc. We can talk about it another time. But one of the most important things was that I wasn't realizing that this defense mechanism was kicking in every time for me, which is that I was saying the same thing that Hollywood was saying. Like, as soon as we have as soon as we have an argument, I'm like, listen, I don't really need this, you know. I could be out of it at any moment. Listen, if you keep going on the way you're going, I could be done, you know. And she said the exact same thing that she's saying here, which is that when you say that, okay, that makes me feel like any little wind of change, you're gonna ride out. But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I don't like this behavior, and it needs to change now, because I will not stand for it. But actually, what I'm actually communicating to the person and what they're going to comprehend is Kojo is going to leave at any moment. Whenever it gets tough, okay, yes, they're going to, Kojo's also not going to accept any of my flaws, okay, because as soon as I show him a flaw, he ducks out. Right? And that can trigger the person, because if they've gone through any form of abandonment in the past, if someone has let them down, even an important person in their life, then what you've just done now is triggered that old wound. Do you know what I'm saying? So what she's talking about here is a triggering, you know. And so, though I also understand Hollywood's understanding here, which is that there's a fear that's working on him. He wants to be able to, he wants to still be this girl, but at the same time, he also doesn't want to face a wave of pain that's coming his way.
Over it.
I'm not telling you to get over it. I'm trying to tell you how long I got to keep going through this.
How long it's gonna take me to get over it is how long you need to deal with it.
Because he knows if he opens himself up to the conversation where he listens genuinely to her concerns, there is a wave of responsibility, there's a wave of pain, there's a wave of accountability, and there's a wave of feeling guilt that you know you done something that is now causing the person some level of pain. And actually, that is a necessity. It's actually needed. You need to get to that place because you've done something and you must be able to acknowledge it. Similar to Shay, she refuses and becomes dismissive about being able to say, hey, I've done something wrong. And so maybe in your childhood, there was a lot of, there was a lot of pain that comes with being wrong. A lot of, even abuse potentially, and when I say abuse, emotional abuse when you do something wrong, the tirades and the shouting and the violent in the words and behavior towards you, remember when you're younger, when you got something wrong, right? And that can also, make a person shy away from accepting responsibility because they link that to old time behavior of where they were punished severely for doing something wrong. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, when I do maths and stuff like that, take my maths work to my dad, and then as soon as I get it wrong, my dad's like gives me a lash on the head or the hand or whatever. You're not concentrating. Truth per se, I'm actually concentrating. I just don't get it. You know what I mean? So now what's happened to me now as a 29-year-old, I fear failure. I get scared when I think there is a chance of failure. I don't want to do it. If I think there's a chance of failure, I don't want to do it. Right? And when I don't understand it, I'll just try to ride it out because as far as I'm concerned, all right, I've subconsciously began to associate failure with that negative experience. And though I'm not conscious of it, doing it purposely, subconsciously my mind is telling me, remember, don't fail. If you fail, what will happen? And so now in a relationship, the exact same way, Hollywood's seeing the same thing. There's a response to something in the past, right? So, a lot of our work when we're trying to change the future, it's about changing, it's about accepting the past. It's about understanding the past and saying to myself, now I'm going to make sure that my choices in the future are going to be better. Okay? And she said, you've hurt me with your words.
Some point in time, I want you to get that in your head that even though you didn't want to hurt me, you did.
And I know, babe, you think that don't eat me up in the inside all the time?
And he says, he knows what he done and et cetera, et cetera. And I believe he does know what he done. He knows exactly what he's done to her. But the trouble here is that in the knowing what he's done, he's unwilling. He's unwilling to slow down and say, let me hear what you're saying. Let me hear your concerns. Let me hear your pains. And I'm going to put aside my desire of marriage now, of my desire of keeping you now. I'm going to keep my fear of losing you now if I let you tell me the truth, okay? I'm going to loosen my fear of abandonment and say, talk to me. What is it that I, Hollywood, have done to you to cause what we are in right now? I don't want to gloss over it. I don't want to go over it. What have I... See, that's taking accountability. And a lot of people don't like doing that. Right? Because they're scared because whatever they have associated in the past, accountability it's not for a thing. So for something like this, they don't want to do it, right? Because of what they've experienced in the past. And so then he comes out and says something again. His word. I think when he's feeling frustrated or feeling like he's under attack, certain things come out of his mouth that just shouldn't come out. Like for instance, he said, "I've waited for so long. I've waited."
It's been way longer.
Then what? Then what you made me wait?
It is.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah, it is.
No, it hasn't. You had me waiting for 5 years.
Long enough. Or, sir. And then she has to come back and say to you, bro, we've been doing this for 7 years. I've been doing this for 7 years. 5 of which I was waiting for you to propose. And then after the 2 of those, you spent pushing me away. So if you're telling me about how much time you spent waiting, you can't compare the time. The mere fact that he even thought he can compare the time tells you where his head is at and what he's thinking. The desire to get married or the desire to keep the girl, because he knows it's an ultimatum. We'll discuss that in the end as well. The desire to keep the girl, okay, is now causing you to be illogical. You know yourself purposely that it was only 2 years, but hers is 7. You knew that. But the way you're perceiving it, the way you're seeing it is different because your desires overriding now the need to actually accept and acknowledge the pain that you've caused. right? This is what happens when you become dismissive. Okay, well, in your dismissiveness, you start making illogical illogical statements because you're trying to validate what you feel and try to eradicate what you know is coming. Okay, and so he says, obviously, how long will it take? And listen, this is the thing: when you don't want to deal with the actual issues, okay, and when you can see, you perceive that there is some pain there, and it's going to be, quite a substantial amount of work that's going to have to be done, then you try to avoid. If you try to avoid it, what you're going to ask is questions like what Hollywood asks, which is, how long is it going to take for you to basically get over it? How long is it going to take for you to get over this thing, right? And the truth of the matter is, she said, however long it's going to take, because part of the work that needs to be done hasn't been done. The part of the work that needs to be done is to listen, and to listen a few times over. Why? Because the equivalent of what he's done, it's not necessarily cheating, but it's when I studied about cheating and what happens to people, the work they say can take anywhere from 6 months to 24 months to recover a relationship. Okay, and in that there are numerous conversations that are had, painful ones, needle painful ones. Yeah, questions where they're asked, and you might have been asked before, what happened, and you have to explain it on the fourth time. And the reason why is because the person's trying to piece together what happened. How did we get here? Okay, and so the same thing here is gonna it's happening with Hollywood and Ashley. The lack of answers that she's going, because remember, there is, and I'm gonna mention now, the real big thing here, which we didn't really know about until now, is that not only did he cancel the wedding, but by canceling the wedding, he then robbed her of an experience. And I say her not in the sense of that he did it on purpose, but to say that, listen, for her, he robbed her of an experience that she will never
deal with this pain when I feel like you don't really grasp it. You really don't grasp it. I will never have my daddy walk me down that aisle. Never. That is a pain that I
get back. Okay, and this is why there needs to be a sit-down conversation. I'm going to give a solution, maybe in the second video, as to what can be done to bring a healing for this relationship. But this is why it needs to be an actual sit-down conversation. Pin your ears forward and pin your lips together, right? This is what Hollywood needs to do. Pin your lips together and open your eardrums. And you've got to sit there and listen. Today, and it may be next week, you may need to listen again. And it may be in a month's time you need to listen again, because what you're trying to do is get her to feel like she has exhausted how she feels. And when I say exhausted, not to dead it off, but it's almost like a kid that cries, and you leave that child to cry, and it gets to the point it realizes crying doesn't do anything else anymore. It's exhausted now. It goes to sleep. And so the similar thing here in the relationship is that sometimes we need to be able to give that person room to expand until they can't expand no more, right? Because there's been there's an injustice that's been done that can never be undone. Okay, no matter what he does, her dad can't come back from the dead and come and see her go down the aisle. So he's robbed her of that experience. All that he can do is move forward and say, how best do I support you going forward? How best do we as a team help each other move forward? And what is it that I'm meant to do? Because later on, she actually begins to start talking about what he can do. And I would say what she did, I don't want to say incorrectly, but what I would have wished she did was follow through and tell him exactly A, B, C, D. This is what you should do, Hollywood. But what he chose to do out of pride also at the same time, it was to say, I don't need you to tell me what I need to do. Then if you know what to do, why have you waited for so long? You don't know what to do.
I also need to see. I'm telling you right now what I need to see. If I don't see it, then that's your fault. Because I'm giving you which I shouldn't tell you nothing.
No, don't tell me nothing. Just let me do me.
Okay.
Similar enough to me, I fear failure, so I don't ask questions. I don't want him to think that I'm incompetent, right? So he should have just said, listen, no, tell me A, B, C, D. What am I supposed to do? And I will do it. I want to do it to the perfect T to make sure that you're comfortable. But pride got a hold of him at that moment because they've been arguing for a little while. And he said, okay, you know what? You don't need to tell me what to do. I know what to do. Well, if you know what to do, let's get onto it. Right? I don't think you know what to do. That's the problem. Right? And so, I think, they're hearing two different things. right? She's hearing get over it from him. It's been too long. And what he's hearing is that I can't do anything right. No matter whatever I do, it can't fix this. I'm stuck. And so both parties are hearing something, right? They're just not hearing the same thing. They're comprehending two different things, even though they're communicating in English. And so until they sit down, let each other have a turn to speak and say, this is how I feel. And then he give feedback and then she give feedback, right? And they're trying to get as close as possible to each other and try to get to what they're matching to matching what each other person's saying. They're never going to get to the point where they need to be, right? Because she keeps on saying that he isn't listening. And part of me hears what she's saying. He ain't. Because if he was listening, we wouldn't be having the same conversation about this. And the way that he responds tells me he's not listening. Because this isn't an issue about saying sorry. This isn't a sorry is not going to cut it. It's not going to finish it. What needs to be done is to sit down and hear her out and then implement changes. Yeah. So he concedes again, that he doesn't mind waiting because he thinks that the reason why she's feeling the way he's feeling, he thinks that, I've been pushing and that's why and that's why I'm not listening. That's not what she's concerned about. She's not concerned about you pushing to more marriage. What she's concerned about is the fact that you, are not deeping that it requires more than a sorry. I need you to I need you to sit down and hear my pain. Okay, bear it. With Ashley and Hollywood, I say that Hollywood's fear is feeding into, I don't mind quitting, I can do whatever I want. And Ashley's responding to that by saying, well, if you don't want to work, you don't want to be with me, then do you really want this? Added to that, you have not even sorted out the issues already. You haven't sorted out the other issues that we need to sort, which are just as important. So we'll do a part 2 on this because we'll talk about what they spoke with Dr. Nicole, and I think it expands a bit more on what actually happened. But yeah, guys, make sure you like, you share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you. Stay locked.